Okay, so are you ready to like jump into the world of pharmaceutical manufacturing with this deep dive?
I am.
All right, great, because we're going behind the scenes with the FDA's 21 CFR Part 211,
Okay.
specifically Subpart B.
Hmm.
You know, the part that focuses on all the people making those pills and potions that we all rely on.
Yeah, the people.
Yeah, you might think, people, isn't this all about like sterile labs and high-tech machines and stuff?
Mm.
Well, that's where it gets really interesting.
It does. It really does. What's fascinating here is how much emphasis the FDA places on the human element, you know?
Really?
You see, Subpart B, it's all about the organizational structure, qualifications, training, and even hygiene practices
Oh,
of everyone involved.
why?
It's the foundation of what's called cGMP compliance.
Okay.
Basically making sure every step from lab testing to packaging meets rigorous quality standards.
So it's like, baking a cake, but with way higher stakes.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
if you mess up the flour ratio,
Yeah.
it's a bummer. But if something goes wrong in a pharmaceutical plant, it could have serious consequences for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why Subpart B is so meticulous, you know?
Yeah.
It mandates that pharmaceutical manufacturers establish crystal clear roles and responsibilities for every single person involved, from the scientists developing the formula to the technicians operating the equipment.
Right.
It's about creating a system where everyone understands their part
Okay.
and how it impacts the final product.
That makes sense, but how do they make sure everyone is actually qualified for these roles?
Right.
I mean, like I wouldn't want someone who just binge watched a few chemistry YouTube videos,
Right.
formulating my medications.
No. Subpart B has got you covered.
Okay, good.
It lays out specific requirements for education, training, and experience for every role involved in the manufacturing process. Think of it as like a pharmaceutical job application on steroids.
Oh, wow.
They need to prove they have the right knowledge and skills
Right.
to handle these critical tasks.
Okay, so we've got the right people in the right roles.
Right.
But how do we know that they're actually doing things correctly?
Right.
Do they have a pop quiz on hand washing techniques every morning or something?
Well, maybe not a pop quiz, but training is a huge part of Subpart B.
Okay.
And it's not just a one-and-done situation.
Right.
Employees need continuous training on everything from operating specialized equipment to understanding the latest good manufacturing practices.
I see.
It's like a never-ending education process
Oh, wow.
to ensure they're always up to date and following the most stringent guidelines.
They're really serious about this.
They are very serious.
And I'm guessing all of this training needs to be documented.
Yes.
We're talking about those mountains of paperwork, right?
You got it. Documentation is the backbone of Subpart B.
Wow.
Everything needs to be meticulously recorded, from employee training records to equipment calibration logs. Think of it as a detective's case file.
Okay.
Every document provides a clue about what happened during the manufacturing process.
I like that.
If there's ever an issue, investigators can retrace those steps and pinpoint exactly where something went wrong.
So it's not just about, checking boxes and filling out forms.
Okay.
It's about creating a system of accountability and transparency.
Absolutely. These records provide proof that the manufacturer is following the rules and maintaining control
Okay.
over every step of the process.
Right.
It's about demonstrating, not just claiming that they're committed to quality.
Yeah.
And it's not just for internal use either. The FDA can come knocking at any time for an inspection,
Oh, really?
and they'll want to see those records.
Okay, now I'm getting a little nervous just thinking about an FDA inspection.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the pressure to have every I dotted and T crossed.
Yeah, right.
What exactly are they looking for?
Well, FDA inspectors, they're like pharmaceutical detectives.
Oh.
They'll review every document, observe processes in action, and even interview personnel to ensure everything aligns with Subpart B.
Okay.
They're checking for gaps and training inconsistencies in documentation.
Right.
And any deviations from approved procedures.
So it's not just about having like a shiny facility and fancy equipment.
Right.
It's about proving that your people are well trained, your processes are robust, and you're constantly striving for that gold standard of quality.
Yes.
No pressure, right?
Right. But that pressure is a good thing. It's what helps ensure that the medications you and I rely on are safe and effective.
Right.
And that peace of mind knowing that every step has been meticulously documented and verified,
All right.
that's priceless.
I'm starting to see why Subpart B is so important. It's the human element that brings all these regulations to life
Yes.
and ensures that they're actually being followed.
Exactly. And speaking of the human element, we haven't even touched on hygiene practices yet.
Oh.
From hand washing facilities to gowning procedures, Subpart B leaves no room for error when it comes to preventing contamination.
Okay, I'm all ears. Let's talk about those nitty-gritty details that ensure every pill and potion is as pristine as possible.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, so let's dive into like the nitty-gritty, of hygiene.
Okay.
We're talking about those pharmaceutical factories.
Yeah.
Looking like they're straight out of a sci-fi movie,
Right.
with people in like those full-body suits and airlocks and stuff, right?
You're not far off. Subpart B lays out very specific requirements for things like hand washing facilities, gowning procedures, and even airflow patterns to minimize the risk of contamination.
I see.
Even microscopic particles can compromise a drug's safety and effectiveness.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
It's amazing how these regulations like account for such tiny details.
Right.
It's like they've thought of everything.
Well, they've tried to. And it's not just about having the right facilities and procedures, it's
Yeah.
about making sure that everyone follows them like religiously.
Okay.
Think about it, if someone forgets to wash their hands properly or doesn't gown up correctly, it could introduce contaminants that end up in the final product.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought. So how do they ensure that like everyone is following these strict hygiene practices?
Right.
Do they have like hygiene police patrolling the hallways?
Well, not quite, but there's a ton of oversight and documentation involved.
Okay.
Every step of the hygiene process needs to be documented, from hand washing logs to gowning checklists.
Wow.
And supervisors regularly observe and verify that these practices are being followed correctly.
So it's almost like a choreographed dance.
Yeah,
Where everyone knows their steps and like the consequences of missing a beat.
that's a great analogy. And just like in a dance, practice makes perfect.
Yeah.
Employees receive extensive training on proper hygiene procedures, and they're regularly evaluated to ensure they're maintaining those standards.
This makes me realize that making medications is a lot more complex than I ever imagined.
It is.
It's not just about mixing ingredients in a lab.
Right.
It's about creating a culture of quality and accountability at every level of the organization.
You're absolutely right. And that culture starts with leadership. Management needs to set the tone from the top down, emphasizing the importance of following these regulations and empowering employees to speak up if they see something that's not right.
Yeah, that's really important. It creates a sense of shared responsibility
It does.
where everyone feels invested in the quality of the final product.
Exactly. And when everyone is on the same page, it makes compliance with Subpart B much easier.
Mm.
It becomes less about following a set of rules and more about embracing a set of values.
Yeah, I can see how that shift in mindset would make a huge difference.
It does.
But let's face it, even with the best intentions, mistakes can happen. What happens when there's a deviation from the approved procedures?
Well, that's where documentation and investigation come into play again. Anytime there's a deviation, no matter how small, it needs to be thoroughly documented and investigated
Okay.
to determine the root cause and prevent it from happening again.
So even mistakes can be learning opportunities.
Absolutely. In fact, investigating deviations is one of the most valuable tools for continuous improvement. By understanding what went wrong and why companies can refine their processes and prevent similar errors in the future.
That's really interesting. It's fascinating how this seemingly rigid system of regulations actually encourages flexibility and adaptation.
That's the beauty of cGMP. It's not about being perfect. It's
Yeah.
about constantly striving for improvement and creating a culture where learning from mistakes is encouraged.
Okay, so we've talked about the importance of people training hygiene and documentation.
Right.
But how does all of this actually translate into like a safer and more effective medication for me, the consumer?
That's a great question. Think about it this way. Every time you take a medication, you're essentially trusting that the manufacturer has followed these strict regulations. To ensure its quality. Subpart B is like a safety net, woven together by countless individual actions and meticulous documentation.
Right.
It's what gives you confidence that the pill you're taking is exactly what it's supposed to be.
That's a powerful way to put it. It's like a chain reaction of responsibility where each link is essential to the integrity of the final product.
It is.
But it's all happening behind the scenes,
Right.
So we rarely get to see the effort that goes into it.
You're right. But even though we don't see it, we benefit from it every time we take a medication. And that's why Subpart B is so crucial. It's the invisible force that protects public health.
And speaking of unseen forces, what about those complaints we were discussing earlier? How do they fit into this whole system of quality and accountability?
Right.
Complaints, it's like the, customer service hotline for pharmaceuticals.
Exactly.
What kind of complaints are we talking about here?
Well, it could be anything related to the product, really. Unexpected side effects questions about storage instructions, or even noticing that the tablets have a strange odor or something like that.
Hmm.
You might think, oh, it's just one weird pill, no big deal.
Right.
But reporting it actually plays a crucial role in this whole system.
Really? So even if I'm not sure if something is wrong, it's better to err on the side of caution and just report it.
Exactly. Because even seemingly minor complaints can be early warning signs of like a bigger problem.
Oh, okay.
Remember those mountains of documentation we talked about?
Right.
Well, complaints get added to that pile,
Okay.
creating a trail that investigators can follow to identify patterns and potential risks.
So if multiple people report the same issue, it could trigger a deeper investigation.
Precisely. And Subpart B lays out very specific procedures for handling complaints.
Okay.
Everything needs to be documented, investigated, and if necessary, corrective actions need to be taken.
I see.
It's all about transparency and ensuring that potential issues are addressed promptly and thoroughly.
It's like a feedback loop where consumer input helps refine and improve the manufacturing process. That's pretty cool.
It is, and it shows how seriously pharmaceutical companies take their responsibility to ensure the safety and efficacy of their products. They're not just churning out pills and hoping for the best. They're actively monitoring feedback and using it to make improvements.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here, from personnel qualifications and training to hygiene practices, documentation, and even handling complaints.
We have.
It's clear that Subpart B is a pretty big deal when it comes to pharmaceutical manufacturing.
It is a very big deal. And while it might seem overwhelming at first,
Yeah.
remember that it's all designed to protect public health.
Right.
Those regulations, those mountains of paperwork, those meticulous procedures, they're all there to ensure that the medications we rely on are safe, effective, and meet the highest quality standards.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? Well, next time you pick up a prescription, you can rest assured that a whole team of dedicated professionals has worked tirelessly to ensure that medication is safe and effective.
Yeah, from the scientists who developed the formula to the technicians who manufactured the pills, from the quality assurance specialists who reviewed the documentation to the packaging operators who carefully labeled each bottle, countless individuals have played a role in bringing that medication to you.
And remember, all those regulations and procedures we discussed, they're not just bureaucratic hoops to jump through. They're a testament to the commitment to quality and accountability that underpins the entire pharmaceutical industry.
Right. So next time you take a medication, take a moment to acknowledge the invisible army of professionals and the robust system that ensures its safety and quality.
That's a wrap for our deep dive into the fascinating world of pharmaceutical manufacturing and Subpart B of 21 CFR Part 211. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.